In this lecture, we'll be discussing ethical decision making. My experience, when students start to study ethics, they assume that it's going to be all about memorizing ethical codes, memorizing laws, and that as long as they operate within the boundaries of those ethical codes and laws, that they are ethical practitioners. Now, the problem with this is if your only intention is to stay within those codes and laws, you're operating at the level of mandatory ethics. This is a minimum level of ethical functioning for clinical practice. So you would be doing only what is mandated of you, the very minimum. And that's not the level where we want to operate. We want to operate at the level of aspirational ethics. This is doing what's in the best interest of the client at all times. So we'll take a positive ethics approach. This is the approach taken by practitioners who want to do the best for clients rather than simply meet minimum standards. And to operate at this level, it requires understanding the spirit of the ethical codes and the principles upon which your codes are based. So not just knowing the letter of the law and the letter of the ethical code, but understanding the values and the beliefs that led to those codes being developed. And also, your ethics codes will only provide broad guidelines for practice. So the ethical codes won't speak directly to every situation that you encounter. And you'll find a lot of sort of gray area language. Things like you may do this. So not you must do this, but you may. So how do you decide whether or not to do that thing? Or don't do this if it's likely to cause harm to the client. Well, how do you determine whether it's likely to cause harm? So you must interpret and apply these codes. So to do that, number one, know the resources that are available to you. So for example, often your professional association will provide lawyers that you can consult with about ethical issues. So know your resources. Always consult with colleagues, talk the issue out with a peer who may have some experience in that area. Keep abreast of laws and current research in your area. And know the consequences of unethical behavior. If you go to the website of your state licensing board, it will tell you the various consequences if you're found to have violated an ethical code. So what is the point of our ethical codes? What are their roles? First of all, they educate practitioners and the public about the responsibilities of the profession. So it tells you as a practitioner what your responsibilities are, and then tells the public what they can expect from you as a member of this profession. The codes provide a basis for accountability. So once you know the codes, then you're going to be held accountable for those codes. They protect the public from unethical practitioners, and they provide a basis for reflecting upon and improving your practice. So you can always reflect on the codes, reflect on those aspirational ethics, and see if you're operating at that level. Ethics code should serve as a guideline to facilitate good decision making about what's best for your clients. So when you're making decisions for your clients, making treatment decisions, you always reflect back on these ethical codes. And they shouldn't be an overly legalistic set of rules. These are meant to be not things that constrain you, but guidelines for practicing at the highest level. So how do you go about making ethical decisions? First of all, identify the problem or dilemma. You want to gather any information you may need to help you understand the situation. So first you need to gather all the information and figure out what type of dilemma am I facing? Is it ethical? So does it involve a possible violation of your ethical codes? Is it a legal issue? So it's about violating a law. Is it a professional issue about your professional behavior? Is it clinical? Is it something about making a treatment decision for the client? Or is it a moral issue? So maybe it doesn't violate an ethical code or a law, but it violates your own personal moral system. So it may be one of these, can be any combination of these various issues. So first, figure out what the issue actually is. Next, identify the potential issues. So evaluate the rights and responsibilities and welfare of everyone involved in the situation. Look at your relevant ethical codes, laws, and regulations, and then seek consultation and document recommendations. So it's important that, number one, you get the input of another professional, and then you document their input. So after this decision is made, if it turns out to not be the right decision and there's some questioning of your decision, you can say, not only did I think this was a good idea, but another professional also supported this idea. So that gives credence and weight to your decision, even if it did end up being the wrong decision ultimately. Then you want to brainstorm. So brainstorm possible courses of action. So now that I know the issue, now that I've gotten input, what are possible steps that I can take? And also include the client in this discussion. This shouldn't be something that's done in isolation. Collaborate with the client and document. Then you want to evaluate the consequences of various actions. So once you have a few things that you're deciding between, if I were to do this, what could be the possible outcome? If I were to take this step, what could be the possible outcome? So evaluate all those possible consequences and then decide on the best course of action. After that course of action has been taken, reevaluate and determine whether further action is necessary. So don't feel like once you've made a decision, you're tied into that decision. Always come back, reevaluate, and decide if you need to change course.